Is Bitcoin about to break out to new all-time highs, or was this another fake out? Plus, are we getting a Solana ETF this week? Watch this video to find out.
Hey everybody, it's Brett from Moonstream Crypto. In this video, we're going to talk about Bitcoin. Is it likely to break out from here to new all-time highs or pull back down to where there's some more support before going higher? Also going to talk about Ethereum and Solana. Is Solana likely to get an ETF approval this week, which could be huge for Solana? And also going to look at some altcoins and the overall market, plus a little bit of news. So let's go ahead and dive in. This article talking about an $11 billion Bitcoin whale returning after being dormant for 2 months. This is a long-term whale and allegedly has 11 billion in Bitcoin and returning a 360 million Bitcoin transfer after 2 months. We saw this whale dump around 5 billion in Bitcoin dollar valuation about 2 months ago, likely contributed to a pullback. So I'm going to unpack this a little bit. We shouldn't be too worried. While many whales have been sort of selling out at the top, Willy Woo selling his whole Bitcoin stack, but remembering these have been in Bitcoin, a lot of these whales, since 2011. Taking money off the table is not a bad thing. It actually is a good thing to get that out of the way now, because as institutions come in, we don't want these whales holding large amounts of Bitcoin where later in the cycle they could dump, which would be potentially a bigger and more tremendous pullback on market price. And so we want to monitor this and keep an eye on what's going on. Maybe they're pushing it into a safer wallet. There's some talk about the quantum threat and all of that. So these older wallets where they were buying Bitcoin in 2011, holding it in just a password protected environment, getting into a stronger wallet makes sense. At any rate, talking about this a little bit deeper, I've highlighted the important parts. So essentially 11 billion in Bitcoin before rotating more than 5 billion of that stash into Ether 2 months ago. Perfectly normal in the path to alt season in the 4-year cycle, where money flows out of Bitcoin as it's hitting new all-time highs, rotates into Ethereum as Bitcoin dominance drops, and then into other strong layer 1 altcoins like Solana, etc. Binance Coin, another one as well, and then into the altcoins. Now, we'll see. I don't think we'll see a broad-based altcoin season this time. People are also commenting about this, but keep in mind, a lot of that retail money, the gambler money that would push altcoins higher, went into the Solana meme coins last year, and they got blown out. So they don't have that same power in mass that they used to. But also, there's something like 3 million altcoins this time, including all those meme coins on pump.fun. And so compared to last cycle where there were around 30,000, so I do think we'll see some altcoins going higher, some quality projects with real utility that have been around several cycles, and certainly we'll see some of these speculative degen in hot narratives, these speculative degen coins. Maybe it's AI. I'm not a big believer in AI as being ready yet. Gaming possibly, but we know that's near the end or sort of toward the top of this cycle when that starts to happen. And so anyway, transfer may signal another rotation into Ether. 11 billion whale emerged 2 months ago and rotated around 5 billion, as I said, in Bitcoin into Ether, briefly surpassing the second largest corporate treasury firm at that time. Now, the whale still held over 5 billion worth of Bitcoin in their main wallet as of Wednesday, signaling more potentially selling pressure for Bitcoin. All right, so, but we don't want to get too caught up in that. I say 1,000 times, show me the charts, I'll tell you the news. And we haven't really seen that happening. In the charts, we can see just yesterday where markets sold off, but that was Binance selling a lot of their Bitcoin because they know where the liquidation prices are, and certainly they do make money on that, as do a lot of these offshore exchanges. Way long time ago, Arthur Hayes, founder of BitMEX, was accused of basically trading against its own traders. I believe that's the playbook for these offshore unregulated exchanges, so trading in margin, very, very risky. So the move inspired other big investors, including 9 massive whale addresses that acquired a cumulative of 456 million worth of ETH within a day, shortly after that whale's initial rotation. I had some wind of this a couple months ago, that this is from an Ether whale himself. I won't name any names, but who's done very, very well, saying that his Bitcoin whale friends were going to start that rotation. Again, this is somewhat normal. And so we don't want to worry about that too much. Also, describe Bitcoin's scarcity and divisibility as key traits reinforcing this role as digital gold. Whole other dynamic there with, I'm going to pull up a chart of gold versus Bitcoin, and with gold hitting new highs around 4,000, which is a resistance area, a pullback from there would signify and likely see capital rotating into Bitcoin. Also, Bitcoin generally follows gold by about 8 weeks, in which case it is ready for Bitcoin to really take off. So we'll look at the charts here in a minute. All right, so Bitcoin holders transfer 3.9 billion, as I said. We won't get too far into the weeds with this, and so I'm going to skim through this a little bit because I want to get to some other news and the charts and keep things quick today. So Bitcoin supply is concentrated around OG whales who peaked their holdings in 2011, according to Willy Woo, and who bought Bitcoin below $10. And again, Willy Woo sold his stack not too long ago, not because he doesn't believe in Bitcoin, but he's already had his 100x plus. And in terms of the money he has now, he's better off putting it into a startup. He's not leaving crypto entirely, but it makes sense for these older whales to take some shifts off the table, take their Bitcoin off the table. And again, I think it shows a sign that a changing of the guard, where we have institutions coming in, we have potentially 401ks coming in, and the ETFs are a big source of buying. We've seen tremendous buying over the last month in Bitcoin ETFs. So just think about that. It's a nascent industry becoming a more mainstream industry. So it's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just a thing to keep in mind. The differential in cost basis and the supply they hold and the rate of selling has profound impacts on how much new capital that needs to come in to lift price is also true, just meaning that as we go higher, it takes bigger and deeper pockets for price to get pushed higher at these prices around 125K. Are we at the market top? I don't believe so at all, and I'll show an indicator showing that. Some people are saying we might be on a timeline. It's true that generally 1,046 days or 1,041 days, something like that, after the last cycle low has been the top in the prior 2 cycles. But in every bull market, people say this cycle is different, but we can't ignore that this cycle is different. We have regulatory regulations here coming in, positive regulations like the Clarity Act, the Genius Act, and the most recent one allowing 401ks and IRAs to enter crypto and a tax-free basis. So we're going to see a massive rotation at some point from these other instruments, and it might be a little bit wild. Some of them, like JP Morgan, just coming out. Jamie Dimon, of course, can't trust anything he says. He's been saying anti-Bitcoin all these years while silently accumulating it. Now that they've accumulated a large enough position, they've come out and say they're recommending 2 to 4% allocation to their clients. This is huge, everybody. A while back, somebody was pointing out that even a 2% allocation in institutional budgeting and sovereign wealth funds, I forget who said it, but he was talking to sovereign wealth funds, and they were asking him what allocation should they do. Even a 2% would be massive, you guys. So 2 to 4% is coming in a bit high on that. All right, over the past few months, Bitcoin dominance has temporarily declined as ETH and select alts have outperformed. We did see a nice push up on some alts like Ondo and Pendle. Pendle was up 70% from when he recommended it, when I recommended it in July, and up 45% when I re-recommended it back in September. So this is a good trend, but these are taking a breather. We'll look at some charts along those lines, but I do think that Solana, ETH, and Bitcoin are going to lead the charge here once again. All right, so I don't want to go through too much of the details here. I think that was the only thing I wanted to do on this article. Let's talk about Solana, then I'll get into some charts and we'll show you what I see. Now, here's the big news. Can Solana outperform Ether if its ETF gets approved? Now, Solana was on schedule to get its ETF reviewed in final review and approved sometime this month. The government came in and said, hey, you know what, we're going to withdraw all these and give you guys simpler guidelines. You guys meaning the ETFs that were being applied for. I'm not going to talk about all of those. Really want to focus on Solana. But an easier guideline basically means easier to get approved. It's being given around a 99% approval as early as Friday. So we really want to keep in mind that potential and what that could do for Solana's chart. And I have some targets that I want to share with you. I originally recommended Solana in my August newsletter, August 1st, 2021. It was trading at $37, and I said it'll pull back $35 is our entry. It did. We got in, and then it went up 657%. So I don't think we'll see that much of a push this cycle, but I do think there's tremendous upside in Solana. So key takeaways: ETH ETFs, they've opened access for obviously the ETH ETF. The flows have been somewhat cyclical, but picking up strongly here already this last 30 days, which we'll look at. And so Solana, though, basically the plumbing is set. They are now set to restructure Wall Street, and that's a little more detail than I want to get into. But now that they have CME futures live, options are slated for this month. That's also going to contribute to volatility, but also could really push prices higher, and that's going to be great. The SEC's generic standards now allow for faster spot ETF listings beyond Bitcoin and ETH, as I just said. And for Sol to outperform ETH, it will need sustained creations, tight hedging, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to get into that, but essentially, the volume, the throughput on Solana is now ahead of Ethereum, and that's great. So Solana's market infrastructure is catching up to Ethereum, according to CME, launching futures on March 17th. Futures generally start out kind of slow until it matures a bit. And the ETFs will certainly help with that as far as a hedging tool. Not to get too technical with all of this. And so, but this is important. Recently, again, in September, the SEC adopted generic listing standards that streamline how exchanges can list spot exchange traded products like ETFs or ETPs, same thing, potentially widening the gap between Bitcoin and Ether, just meaning another potential instrument that gives leverage and can attract those hedge funds and institutional funds, etc., and whales wanting to trade with leverage. So while I don't recommend that the retail level for most people, it's important to notice that in terms of the institutions. So, and I'm going to get into all of this about ETH ETFs. I'm going to scroll down here a bit. Solana usage, the usage growth and risk. So in Q2 of 2025, just recently, Solana generated over 271 million in network revenue. So remembering that these are not just speculative tokens. I always recommend companies with utility, real usage, the potential to get customers, because believe it or not, customers are good for business, the ability to generate profits and for the network. And so far, Solana is generating a lot of profits in their transactions and a lot of volume through the network and the blockchain, which is important. In January of 2025, Solana processed 59.2 billion in peer-to-peer transactions and stablecoin transfers, which is a sharp rebound from the lows of 2024. So they're getting past all of that. And Pump.fund that tarnished, the meme coin mania, they let it happen on their through Pump.fund, and a lot of people got burned. It pushed prices down. We also had a lot of unlocks on Solana. So that is all filtered out, and Solana is ready to find its new foothold and push higher, I believe. The supply of USDC and Solana, that's going into the weeds a little bit. Let's scroll down here. Here's some things. 2 structural risks are worth watching. Reliability. Now, Solana did have a 5-hour outage back in 2024 and February, and it required a coordinated restart. Not a big deal. They had some trouble back in 2021. The reason the prices pumped so high, they were claiming 50,000 transactions per second, and then there was a bit of an outage. But guys, this is very early. This technology has to be tested, and the fact that they've gone through 2 of these now makes them stronger and in a better position to not go down. And to be honest, 5 hours isn't the end of the world, in my opinion. Plus, I will say, not many people are familiar with this, but they have a layer 2 on Solana coming out called Fire Dancer. Go ahead and look it up. That promises or is suggesting they'll be able to do 500,000 transactions per second and upwards of 1 million. If they can do that, it's game over. They win. The Lightning Network for Bitcoin, that's great. But for speed of transactions, the Fire Dancer Layer 2 is going to be huge for Solana once it gets going. As far as regulation, the SEC complaints in the past have referenced Solana as an unregistered security. I think that they'll get through this, and certainly with this pro-crypto administration. So that's not a huge worry, but worth listing there. Also, quick thing, did you know that CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange is planning daily, monthly, and quarterly expirations for options, which is good, adds more liquidity, And I'm really looking forward to trading options on crypto once that liquidity increases, which will narrow that bid-ask spread, because in illiquid markets, you have a large bid-ask spread, so that if it turns against you, not only could you be selling at a loss, but taking a bigger loss with a wider spread. That's why most big traders are trading in the spot market with the bigger and the higher liquidity campaigns, or projects rather, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. So anyway, good to know. We're working on some interesting options, software, and vertical spreads software for those things with options on crypto. So stay tuned for that. What is the Sol ETF? What would it change? The big thing here, the regulatory runway, like I said, they've just changed the regulatory standards to be generic, aka easier to get through. Can Solana outperform ETH? If you're an ETH bull, not putting ETH down, some people are waiting for ETH to flip Bitcoin. I'm not a believer in that necessarily, but hey, I'm a investor in Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol. And there's an old saying, if you own a horse racing stable, you don't race them equally. You race your best horse. So whichever one is pulling ahead, makes sense to move capital there. Is that right? So anyway, the bull case, 6 to 12 months after approval here, giving some pretty high targets. This will give broader access. RIAs, that's registered investment advisors and brokerage, can gain more exposure under these listing standards. Essentially, a lot of these traditional investment houses can't buy unregistered securities, so the ETF allows them to buy it through the ETFs because they are registered. They are regulated through the CME. In case that all is confusing, there you go. All right, now as I said, improved market dynamics, tighter spreads, and greater capacity as they hedge by the CME, Solana futures and options. So anyway, what to keep an eye on, whether the ETF would remove major bottlenecks and arrive with stronger market infrastructure than past cycles. That's for sure. And Ether has already proven it can attract billions through ETFs, although not as big as Bitcoin, obviously, but we are still in the very early stages. And remember, the Bitcoin ETF has been the most successful ETF in history. So some trickle over, that's going to be enough to push these much higher. And guys, if you're holding on in the longer term time frame, getting in early in the spot in Solana and Ethereum rather, as we go along, these are not going away. I think it was Pompliano just came out recently saying that he thinks Bitcoin will go up 30% per year forever, because now that it is a more stable investment vehicle like gold has been. Now, of course, be careful with that. Every cycle, people are saying this cycle is different. We're not having a bear market, so I don't believe that. I think we will have an end of the year sell-off. I think we'll probably get to 150K, and then we'll see sell-off in the early quarter next year. And but then I think we could certainly see a much bigger run up to 200K later in the year. Remember that Gary Gensler, old habits die hard, you guys, not Gary Gensler, but the SEC chair, Jerome Powell, we need to get him out of there also. His term is up in May. Now we have virtually assured 2 more rate cuts. I'll show you that, and all these things will contribute to more favorable environments for risk on assets and more money flooding in. So that's all I wanted to cover on that article. Let me jump back into the next one here. Here we can see with the Solana ETF, I'll come back to that, but with the Solana, these are the firms that have filed their S1s: Grayscale, VanEck, 21 Shares, Bitwise, Fidelity, CoinShares, Invesco. I'm sure that BlackRock is in there somewhere, but at any rate, these are the percentages: 95% approval, odds of approval in 2025. So we're very likely going to see that in the near term. And ETF analysts at Bloomberg, Eric Balkunas, is now estimating 100% probability of approval. I think it's a lock, citing increased regulatory clarity and leadership changes at the SEC, as we know, with old man Gensler out of the picture and the much more favorable team on board, as we already have seen. So basically, the institutional capital is poised to flow into Solana. If approved, the ETFs could unlock billions in institutional demand. Again, a lot of these institutions, they can't really buy unregulated securities, right? And so at this point, the ETFs allow for that. It's regulated through the CME. Similar to the wave that followed Bitcoin and the Ethereum ETF approvals, Solana should be next. And so this should open a new chapter of institutional adoption for Solana. And as we know, there's big money in the institutions sitting on the sidelines. Some are saying $7 trillion in IRAs and 401ks, which President Trump has now sort of green-lighted for that to happen. SEC still has to approve that, but when that happens, we're going to see an initial flood, but a long-term delayed reaction. Same thing with JP Morgan. It doesn't mean right away that money is going to flow in. They have to get on the horn with their registered investment advisors, say, tell your clients to buy Bitcoin. And so there's a bit of a backlog for that, but over time, that'll help keep the prices higher. So anyway, let's see. Now there is currently the Solana ETF available, the Rex Osprey ETF, launched July 2nd. It really isn't seeing much volume, but at least it leads some precedent, giving price targets of 290 to 345. I'm going to give my near-term targets. I'm going to be selling around 295, taking some profits. We can see a big block of sellers there with one of our signals. Longer term, I think Solana could hit 700 this cycle, most likely. So with that, let's go ahead and jump to the next chart, the next news, because I want to keep going and move on with this. So anyway, let's dive into the next page. And so this is the ETF flows, essentially. And what we can do here is look at the flows recently coming in. As far as yesterday, 2 days ago, we had $970 billion coming in, and then almost $900 billion yesterday from the IBIT, from BlackRock coming in. Fidelity and the rest of these not doing a whole lot, registering as zeros. Maybe they haven't reported yet. BlackRock, of course, the big dog in the room, and so we want to keep an eye on that. That's what's moving the markets there. Here's the FOMC, the Fed Watch tool, showing 92%, 92.5%, which is essentially 100%. Anything over 85% is invariably going to get approved. That is for the October meeting here. And then December, they're also suggesting 78%. These do change. I think we'll get 2 more rate cuts, and that will be good for crypto and good for Bitcoin. Moving right along on a liquidation heat map here, we can see the reason prices pumped up here was the liquidate shorts. We know that these become targets where these bigger exchanges like Binance, they can move markets. They can sell a lot of Bitcoin, and they saw that last week where they pushed it down to liquidate traders that were leveraged long in here. I think it was nearly $1 billion of liquidations. We had 1.8 billion. It was a huge number. And then what happened recently is people went short these yellow areas. If I go to a larger time frame on this, we can expand it out and see. So basically, these high yellow areas are where the most liquidations are, aka the most profits for these exchanges like Binance that themselves are whales who hold a ton of Bitcoin, and they can sell at any time to drive price or buy back. So back here, we saw that just yesterday, October 7th, huge sell-off here going in to liquidate these traders down in this range, and then moving back up to liquidate traders. So the area we'll be looking for now is the push up to 126,000, because probably a lot of shorts came in down below. This isn't 100%, but it's a bit of an art and a science. So I'll be looking for that, pushing up to an all-time high around 126,000, but we're not quite where it goes parabolic. We have to keep an eye on that. Now, I mentioned we're not at the top. Here is the bull market peak indicators that from CoinGlass. There are, how many? There's 30 of these. In aggregate, it's showing 100% hold signal. So we are not seeing topping signals on any of these. Some of these are getting up in the ranges where they could be nearing that, like the pi cycle top. But the pi cycle top isn't a top signal until it crosses. It's been great. I used it to call a top last cycle, so we'll be watching that as well. And there's a number of these you may have seen before. We'll show the rainbow chart a little bit too. But overall, if we average these, it's not too bad. Again, I would put our hold percentage more in this area. It's not a 0%. It's not 100% hold. There's always risk, but going through all of these, they're not too bad. Altcoin season index, Bitcoin dominance, and not going to go through all these, but the point is it is registering as 100% hold here. Here's the Bitcoin rainbow chart. Now, here's the old one. If you're going to use this one, I recommend using the newer one, the logarithmic chart. It didn't quite capture all of the movement here. So there's a newer version of it here. If you go over to CoinGlass, they've redone it. This one is a bit stronger. So showing that we've gone into the red zone a few times. Last cycle we got into the blood red or the blood orange zone, and then into the orange zone there. So this cycle, it looks like it's going one less zone than the previous. So if we were to get up even into this orange zone here, the range is 185,000 to 235,000. That's where I think we're headed. I think we can get to around 200,000. Now, if we remember how hard it was to break 100,000, just keep in mind 200,000 going to be a bit tricky and going to take some time. I have one study that shows 245,000 as the top and also projecting the next bear market bottom to 74,000. You can see that over on TradingView. I'll be updating that shortly with a very interesting discovery with that pullback percentage from the last cycle from the high to the bottom is exactly pi 3.14. I discovered that with playing around with one of my programmer partners. So if we go to 245,000, the retracement 3.14 puts us at 74K. The reason that's important, in Bitcoin's history, price has never gone back below the price where it was when a new incoming president was inaugurated. When President Donald Trump got into office November 5th, prices were right at 74,000, which was a key support and resistance level. And so I do believe that level will hold in the next bear market. That's just my opinion. We'll see what happens. Okay, so going right along, let's go to some charts here. We'll come back to the shorter time frame. Here is the chart of Bitcoin, and of course we pulled back here. This was the big liquidation event yesterday, and the big bearish engulfing candle, kind of a triple top here at that 124,000 level. Now, in my experience, breakouts generally happen on the third or the fifth attempt. So the fact that it rejected here, I was anticipating a deeper pullback and possibly a fourth attempt, and then finally breaking above on the fifth attempt. But this hasn't fully invalidated yet. We can see that buyers are lined up in this green zone between 119,400 all the way up to 121,600. We visualized where the concentration of buy and sell limit orders are on the charts, so we can see where these buyers and sellers are. Currently, we don't have any sellers up top. Up until very recently, we had a big, thick sell block up here. So we've seen those sell block. That sell block has now largely gone away on the larger time frames. We can still see it sometimes on the shorter time frames here. But on the daily, not seeing a strong amount of sellers there or the total market cap. So that's actually very bullish and a new development. I have buy limit orders in at 118,000 if we do pull back to retest. This generally when breakouts happen at resistance levels, we'll get a retest and then continue higher. But we did come back into this buy zone. I can certainly see this pushing higher. I'm going to put some buy limit orders in around 120,600 to catch this bounce. And we'll see what happens. Some of our momentum indicators, however, showing that it's overbought, probably going to roll over here. If it breaks down below this 80 level, that's what I would be looking to see. And just checking my early reversal indicator. Now, this indicator is very powerful. It was an accidental discovery. It exactly called the market top last cycle on the weekly time frame. When I see a bearish ERI, bearish early reversal indicator, which I believe is picking up on programmatic institutional buying and selling for various reasons. We mark it with an arrow. The actual oscillator is fairly complex with a Keltner channel and a time frame based movement. So won't get into that. It's not fun to look at, so we use arrows to show. And it's very good at calling these inflection points, as you can see here, especially when used with a bearish engulfing candle. So we saw that here in a big sell-off. And so when this indicator rolled over to red and the RSI Pro that we have also showed bearish divergence, when these align, they're very, there's much confluence and very strong. So with that in mind, we have the potential for a deeper pullback, but my trigger is the arrow, the bearish engulfing candle, and this signal here has to break below 80 because we can see it bounces off of that sometimes. I don't want to get into the weeds with that. I'll keep you guys posted, but these are things we cover on a day-to-day basis and in a weekly live class that I do in my M3 Active Trader program. If you haven't checked that out, go over to moonstream.io/M3. That's moonstream.io/M as in Mary and the letter 3. You can learn about that. I do daily updates in a Signal chat, and I do a live weekly class on Wednesdays that's recorded, input in the members area. You also get access to our trading signals. So definitely check that out. You can ask live questions in our private signal chat, and that's a good way to have some very affordable group coaching with all of this. I nailed the top of the last market. I nailed the bottom of the last market, and we've been very good at catching these inflection points. So if you're struggling with Bitcoin, struggling with your trading, if you want to take it to the next level, go check that out. And lastly, if you'd like to work with me one-on-one, go to moonstreamcoaching.com/start, and you can watch a short video there. All right, let's dive back into this and start to look at Ethereum. I want to jump to total market cap first and show the scenarios here. So I had drawn this back along here on the total market cap that includes Bitcoin. Let's see. And so we're zigzagging around a bit. I think I drew this on a weekly chart, so it looks a bit janky. At any rate, on the two paths here, we had a big sell block up here that is now cleared. So as I said, that clears the road for Bitcoin. Previously, we had that. We didn't have it on total 2 or total 3, which was signaling to me that the altcoins might be ready to run next. At any rate, from here, we could go either way. I'll keep everybody updated on the total market cap here. Total 2 also pushing up to a prior all-time high to try to break through that. And so struggling a bit there, and no surprise with there, and total 3 as well. So just waiting for these to firmly break above, and then we can see these kind of moves where they either pull back and go. And on the breakout, this is not set to a right timeline, but to break up to new highs, pull back, retest, and then go. I believe that is what is happening next. We can take a quick look at CME. There's no CME gaps to be aware of. I will pull up the IBIT, which has gaps that are similar. If this is too high level for you, I'm just going to probably blow through that. Here's a big one, though. Bitcoin dominance has been selling off. Typically, Bitcoin dominance drops and the alt season starts, but we have this support trend line here going all the way back to 23, and even further if I were to extend it, basically suggesting, and I know Ben Cowan is suggesting, that Bitcoin will bounce off of there. Bitcoin dominance runs again up in this range for that push to new all-time highs, probably at least 135K. I think, though, 150K, which I've been forecasting for 2 years now, and multiple confluence of multiple bull flags point toward that. I'll show you that chart next. And in fact, let's make sure and pull that up here. And yeah, let me zoom out. It's actually a different chart. I've got a few studies here. Bear with me. So this is the chart. Let's bring it out full screen. So target zone 150K. Here's why we had a bull flag back in here, February, March, April. The measured move from the flagpole there to up here puts it right at 150K. Smaller bull flag right in there. Smaller bull flag flagpole puts it in that range also. And then this most recent one, the flagpole here, and then from here the breakout up in this range also. It's a little bit. You know, doesn't quite get there, but this range between 145K, I'd say 150K, is in the bag. Okay, let's see. Now with that, I think I'll do this though. I want to stay on that point in case you're new here. By the way, if you like the content, please hit that like button and subscribe. I know everyone asks you to do that. It really helps us get in front of more people. I do believe we have some of the best TA out there. We're being told we're top 3%, my private clients and everybody else. So I would appreciate that. If you could do that, hit like, subscribe, the bell, and that way the YouTube shows it to more people. Anyway, with that in mind, here's my study from 2 years ago that is still playing out with targets of 150K to 200K. If you haven't seen this before, here's a quick version. So going back in here to the last cycle, simple Fibonacci from the 2017 high down to the low here, extended out, exactly called the last cycle high. Incidentally, though, it had nothing to do with the price of Bitcoin. Nothing at all. It had everything to do with the price of the total market cap, which right at this peak was exactly $3 trillion. Incidentally, the recent push to 124K was when the total market cap hit $4 trillion. Big round numbers on the total market cap, important to watch for. At any rate, the same study, Fibonacci from the last high to the last low around 16.5, which I also forecasted last year, 2022 rather, ahead of time, shows us that the 1.618 would go to 100K. We bounced around there and achieved that. The 2.618 puts us right at 150K, and the 3.618, which was the forecast of the last cycle, again, high-low, projected the Bitcoin high. Doesn't mean this has to play out again, but why fix something that's not broken? Puts us right at 200K, 206,000. So let me unpack that a little further for you. I think this blue line is the exact chart pattern from over here, just maneuvered a bit. If we go like that, we can see Doesn't mean it will be exact, just a guideline. If we can push higher from here and we get that fourth and final angle pushing higher, we could certainly do a throw over around 200K, potentially by Feb 26. Here's the thing though, we've been pushing this out farther and farther. Originally, I thought we'd be there by now, and so we were more along the lines of, let me grab that blue study here. It's not letting me grab it. It was more like this, but we have, because this is delayed in going higher, I'm continuing to push this, move it over a little bit. So with that, time-wise, I'm putting it right about December of this year for an all-time high. And it doesn't mean the timing is right. It certainly could be accelerated, something around these lines. I think we'll get a throw over and then pull back to that 150K region, something along these lines. 200K we'll have trouble with, but then I think we could certainly see another bounce in 2026, pushing up into that 245,000 region. Why that? Here are the factors that we've been compiling since 2022. I won't go through them all again. You can look at previous videos, but of course, many of these have happened. All of these hadn't happened when I started the list. Big BlackRock Fidelity ETFs, already done, huge inflows. Bank Term Funding Program ending, that didn't quite happen, but we still may see a wave of bank failures because of a commercial real estate crisis that hasn't happened, but is on the way. The banks have been taking the other side of all of the commercial real estate after COVID that has been vacant. And these big companies were paying the leases. These leases are coming due and they're not renewing. I think there's a commercial real estate crisis on the way. Banks will fail. The Fed will come in and either print money overtly, or through the Bank Term Funding Program, they bail out the banks. So that has a question mark on it still. We'll see. I think that'll happen. Number 3, creative financing and QE. We haven't seen QE outwardly yet, although President Trump is now suggesting that we'll send out $2,000 stimulus checks as our share, almost like reparations, for the tariffs that dumped the markets previously. So remember that last cycle, the stimulus checks, the $1,400 stimulus checks for COVID went right into the markets. That for sure pumped Bitcoin and all of crypto. So imagine if we start seeing $2,000 stimulus checks heading, that will really push markets higher and be sort of a stealth QE. Creative financing to pay down the debt. We're also talking about how they're going to revalue gold. It's been done before. They haven't revalued it in a long time. Gold is now at $4,000 an ounce. Why? Why are they allowing that to happen or encouraging that? Well, if they revalue gold and revalue all the gold that we have allegedly in Fort Knox, we could then sell a bunch of it, put it into Bitcoin, and so not only doing that to pay off the debt, which is right at $37 trillion and growing, they're going to have to get creative with this. They're going to have to, or the Republic is dead. Bit extreme, you guys, but these are interesting times and unprecedented times. De-dollarization, USD hyperinflation, the BRICS nation. No, the dollar has come way down. It's looking ready to bounce and explode. So these are all things that we'll see what happens, but to push people and investors into quality assets and truly scarce assets. Corporate FOMO, we've seen that with Michael's strategy is what I call him. He's calling it strategy. Same thing. He's been amazing. Tesla now owns $1 billion of Bitcoin and crypto. Apple, BlackRock, all of these other corporations, corporate FOMO picking up, as well as U.S. country adoption as a reserve currency. I was at the Bitcoin conference and heard the head of Panama City, not Florida, but Panama, suggesting not only are they moving toward a Bitcoin standard, but they are looking to do that with other countries around them as a sort of an economic growth zone. So watch for that. That's likely coming. And then there will be other countries and other zones, economic zones, trying to adopt that. All right, guys, post having reduced miner supply, there's less Bitcoin that can be mined. So that means there's less Bitcoin that the miners can sell. Less sell pressure means number go up. Take your foot off the brake. Next time you're in the car, what happens? It moves, especially when you have foot on the gas. A less available exchange supply equals a demand surge. We've been hearing that for a while. It's going to be happening any minute. We don't know, but certainly at some point, the on-exchange supply diminishes. Once all these whales stop dumping their Bitcoin, and that's likely what the break is right now. Big whales selling and dumping, taking their profits, taking their chips off the table as they should. Let the industry evolve. Let this, Bitcoin and the whole blockchain evolve into a mature asset. Lastly, political support favorable Bitcoin and crypto. Guys, I've had this on the list for years. We could not imagine a better scenario with Gensler out and Trump in office and a very pro-Bitcoin administration pushing all the green lights, Clarity Act, Genius Act, all that regulation, opening up to IRAs, the 401ks. We can't ignore that this is a train ready to leave the station. Victor Hugo once said that you cannot stop an idea whose time has come. The idea has come and it's happening right now. Great time to be alive. Global fiat debt bubble happening. Commercial real estate crash I talked about. How is President Trump planning to get us out of our debt? And he's not worried about the rest of the world. Love him or hate him, he's doing amazing things, getting out of our debt bubble by revaluing gold, selling a bunch of it to put toward our debt, but using it to buy a bunch of Bitcoin. Now, he promised to have 1 million Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. However, got in office, the taxpayers wouldn't be happy if we printed all that money to buy Bitcoin. The solution, revalue gold, sell a whole bunch of it, and put it into Bitcoin, get that 1 million Bitcoin reserve, so that within 4, 5, 10 years, the value increasing so much could wipe out, allegedly, potentially wipe out our debt, you guys. We would be the greatest country in the world economically once again. So not to get nationalistic, just saying the facts and let you figure it out and what your thoughts are. Lastly, flight to quality. We're seeing this happen. This just checked off. Pensions are now allowed in UK, are now allowed to buy Bitcoin, 401ks and IRAs. President Trump paving the way for that. SEC still has to prove it, and of course sovereign wealth funds like the Saudis, etc. So these are the reasons why I think my study is valid. Again, I've been doing this for 2 years. So enough about that, but let me know your thoughts down below. We'll get back to some charts in a minute. Here's another top signal and chart. Sorry, guys, I'm just getting over a cold. And this is a study I've recreated. You might have seen it before. But essentially, every top in Bitcoin has been exactly where the prior cycle high, if you go horizontally, intersects with the 200-week SMA. So going up, that was the top. The next time that level was hit across the SMA was here. That was the top in December of 2017. And of course, similarly, going over to the right, hitting the SMA. It was a little bit late, but pretty close. So the point is, for this cycle, if it also plays out, not saying that it has to, when would that likely happen? I fudged that a little bit based on this movement here, because if prices move up fast, which we expect, the SMA, the simple moving average, will as well. And so the intersection potentially of that over to here puts us in at around end of December for the top. And at around 225,000, I don't really know where that would be. Let's just say 200,000. But if I was to grab this from last cycle, we could see much higher prices potentially. I don't think we're going to get to 500,000 Bitcoin this cycle, but at any rate, pretty interesting study. Let's see, what else do we have? I want to touch quickly on this, and then again, get to some altcoin charts and show you what I think happens there with Solana. But if you haven't seen this chart yet, I'll clean it up a little bit. What we're going to pay attention to is this is USDT, Tether dominance. And when money flows into Tether and stable coins, that's when the crypto markets are crashing. And so the point here is that if we look at this, let me move that out of the way. When the money is flowing out of stable coins and into crypto, coming back, those are the highs, the market highs. So we see this March, April, May, and then we had the midsummer crash correction in 2021, and then money flowed out of Tether and stable coins into Bitcoin crypto, taking us to the high November 2021 right here. And then what happened? Bear market. So money flowed out into stables. That was it. Point being, this lower trend line has held support for USDT dominance all the way since 2018. So this pattern, this blue pattern here, I've drawn it over here. Originally, I thought it might be something like this, and we were in trouble. And then I put it here. I'm like, all right, we're still in trouble, but I think we have a little more time on this. So we'll have to see if we start to see this push up higher, then we get a correction. That would be potentially into November, December of 2025. A bit of a hit or miss. We could easily move that over, but a pullback here into sort of March of 26. This could mean a Q1 or Q2 run again, Bitcoin's second peak to 200,000. I think that's in the cards, you guys. I don't think we're going to go straight up from here, and then we go into the bear market. So doesn't mean this has to happen, but it's worth noting. As long as tether dominance is hugging down in here, we have the potential for new highs in Bitcoin, and if it breaks down even, that would be amazing. But at any rate, all right, let's circle back, you guys. Let's see. I'm going to jump back over into here. I'm looking at a 4-hour chart here because I think Bitcoin's ready to rotate up a bit based on our signals, probably push up to 126K based on a 4-hour chart. But let's dive into altcoins. So we talked about Bitcoin, and we covered all that. Lots to cover in this region. So let me just unpack this a little bit for you. This might be a little messy here. Bear with me. I'm watching the parallel trend channels. Next support zone is around 135K, and I think we've covered Bitcoin pretty well, though. Ethereum. Here are the possibilities. I think we rejected here at 4,700. Again, breakouts usually happen on the 3rd or 5th attempt, and we hit once and twice and 3 times rejected. So I expected this to reject on the 4th. So the question is, do we push and break out on this pump higher, or do we drop down into the sell or the buy zone where all these buyers are in the green zone? I am going to look at our other indicators, our trend strength indicator, indicating probably going to roll over a bit. How low and how far, it's hard to say, but we have bearish divergence. If you like these signals, by the way, they're amazing. They're the best I've ever used. We've created them internally. You can learn more about them at cryptomastery.org. I'm a 25-year trader. When I started trading Bitcoin and ETH in 2018, was not having success. Why? Because I was using regular RSIs, regular stochastics, regular MACDs that everyone else uses, so you have no edge. Our signals are built by a quant engineer, former hedge fund manager, trader, and programmer. Impossible to find all 4 of those, and they're amazing. So when they align, I know that there's going to be follow through. So ETH rolling over. We have 3 signals: bearish engulfing candle, bearish early reversal indicator, bearish TSI. My confirmation is going below 80, so I'm going to set an alert on that. That's another beautiful thing. You can do this and with alerts, and great way to sort of validate things and have these pop off. And if it does, I'm out. I take the motion out. It has worked very well. And also this here, our bearish, our our RSI Pro, our version of it, shows bullish and bearish divergence. Beautiful, isn't it? Great looking indicator. Whenever it's oversold, that's key indicator. We're going lower a bit. Bearish divergence, bullish divergence. Let's see how that overlays. It overlays almost perfectly on these. So here, bearish divergence went down, bullish divergence went up. Bearish divergence, I think this points toward potentially a deeper drop in ETH. Not suggesting it goes all the way to 3,900. But it's not looking likely to go up anytime soon. Certainly could zigzag around in here and then go higher. The best times to buy these are on these bounce points when they're oversold and ready to go higher, like we can see. Okay, I don't want to get too far into the indicators. You can see more at cryptomastery.org. Check those out. Got some great deals on that. They will for sure improve your trading, 100%, and they're fully guaranteed. Try them. You'll love them. All of my students and private clients with 6, 7, 8 figures in the markets use them, trust them, and that's what I teach how to use in my weekly classes and the M3 Active Trader. So if you really want to make the most of this bull run, make sure to check out all of these courses at moonstream.io. They're all linked at the bottom. Or if you'd like one-on-one coaching from me, I've got a limited number of mentoring and coaching spots, and that's where I'm helping you optimize the bull run. I create an optimized portfolio for you, and including percentages of what to allocate to, and we get one-on-one time together. So if that's of interest, check out moonstreamcoaching.com/start. And just trying to get, guys, I'm not here to sell you things. I'm here to give you the tools to win and really do well and profit, and make sure you're not one of the 99% that fail in a bull run because they hold on too long. Okay, guys, let's get into Solana. Solana, one of my favorites. I doubled my Solana in my IRA by following our signals all through this zone. I won't get into that now. I think from here, I'd love to see it come back down here. We were buying, I bought some Sol down here at 190, and right here at 205, 20, right in here, all these bounce points. So we've been dollar cost averaging Sol. I think from here, either we push up to this 260 range and ultimately to 280 and then 295. Those are my sell targets near term. I won't sell all of it, Because as we learned in 2021, Solana's a rocket ship. It can keep going. So I recommend selling a quarter, a third at each point. I'll sell half here at 280. I'll sell another quarter up here at 295. Wait for pullbacks or breakouts to buy into strength. I would rather buy into strength higher than I sold it than ride something down and not know where it stops. Problem is momentum turning over a bit. We're riding the 50-day and 21-day EMAs though. That's positive, so kind of mixed signals there. But I'm very bullish on Solana, except for this big sell zone, as we can see up in here. Once Solana breaks above 300 on a closing basis, it's price discovery mode. It'll shoot up probably to 400, 500. Okay, not financial advice for educational purposes only, but it doesn't matter. I can say that one to many. So whatever I think does not mean it's financial advice for you individually. All right, Pendle has been great for us. I recommended Pendle back here on this Wednesday. Let's see, back in here Wednesday, one of these, and it went up 45%. But originally, I recommended it back down here. It went up 70%. Do love this project, and it's a nice parallel channel higher. My targets are $7, $10, $16, and $20 based on the Fibonacci projections. But alt season isn't here yet. It's just limping along. I could pull that up if you want. We had it for a little bit, but at this point, all eyes are on Bitcoin. Ondo Finance, another one. I'm not going to go through all of these, but some of these we're watching that are riding their lower trend channels, and we're just sort of quietly waiting for those to break out. So I'm not going to go into too many more of these. These are some that we're watching: AVAX and Polkadot, but it's really, alt season's not here yet. It's too early. I'd be focusing on the leaders: Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana. So guys, that's all I have for you. If you like what you saw today, please hit that like button, leave a comment. I'm happy to answer those. If you want me to cover anything extra or different in the next video, let me know. And please subscribe, turn on a little bell thingy so you get notified when I do more of these. Do plan to do more as we go. Cheers, everyone. Hope you have a great week, and good luck. Bye.